Let's be clear. I'm not speaking for Microsoft or my employer. I'm peeking around the corner. If you're in the DIB or cyber, you know the feeling. AI agents, quantum, supply chain risk, it's a new venture every week.
But underneath all the noise, there's a signal. Trust is being renegotiated. The math, the systems, and the vendors we trusted, the certificates, signatures, and models, all of it is moving.
Microsoft's building the quantum future and protecting its ecosystem from it. That's the story. For the DIB, it's about whether our trust chains are ready for the day the old math stops mathing.
That's the part I want to put light on. So let's get into it.
Somewhere inside a Microsoft system, a certificate is doing its job. No flashing warning, no breach headline, no dramatic music. Just a small piece of math quietly saying, yes, this machine is who it claims to be. That's the strange thing about trust. When it works, it disappears. You don't feel it, you don't see it. You just log in, send the file, sign the code, open the app, connect to the service, and keep moving. But behind all of that ordinary motion sits a fragile agreement. We agree the math still holds. We agree the key still protects. We agree the signature still means something. We agree the system can still tell the difference between what's trusted and what's pretending. Now here's where the story gets uncomfortable. That agreement may be valid today, but the data protected by that agreement may still matter 10 years from now. Medical records, legal archives, defense technical data, financial history, source code, identity records, long-lived intellectual property, the kind of data that doesn't lose value just because the calendar keeps turning. And that's where quantum stops being a physics story and starts becoming a cybersecurity problem, because an adversary doesn't need tomorrow's quantum computer to create today's exposure. They can collect encrypted data right now, store it, wait, and if a cryptographically relevant quantum computer eventually arrives, yesterday's unreadable data may become tomorrow's open book. That's the threat model called harvest now, decrypt later. It sounds clean on paper. In practice, it's patient theft, quiet collection, deferred consequence, a slow fuse burning under the trust layer. I'm Alan's Cyber Explorer virtual avatar, created using an AI media workflow to support practical cybersecurity education, emerging technology analysis, and decision authority awareness. Today, we're putting light on Microsoft's quantum protection strategy. And the story has two fronts. On one side, Microsoft is trying to build a quantum computer using one of the boldest, strangest, most contested approaches in the field. On the other side, Microsoft is hardening Windows, Azure, Microsoft 365, identity, certificates, developer tools, and cloud infrastructure against the very kind of future that quantum computing may create. That sounds like tension. It's really strategy. Build the future, survive the future, shape the standard, protect the trust. That's the chessboard. And for cybersecurity leaders, especially those working around government, regulated industries, critical infrastructure, or the defense industrial base, this isn't some faraway lab coat science story. This is a migration story, and migration is where the risk likes to hide. Here's the cleanest way to understand Microsoft's move. Quantum isn't being treated as a single breakthrough moment. It's being treated as a long security transition. That distinction matters. A breakthrough gets announced, a transition gets governed, a breakthrough gets applause, a transition gets buried inside certificate templates, key vaults, TLS stacks, identity providers, code signing pipelines, procurement language, vendor roadmaps, software updates, and systems nobody wants to touch because they've been working fine for 12 years. And that's where the real work begins. Microsoft's strategy has three major pieces. First, the hardware bet. That's the Majorana path. Topological qubits. Big ambition. Bigger scientific debate. Second, the protection layer. That's post-quantum cryptography moving into Windows, Windows Server, .NET, Azure, Microsoft 365, identity services, and the broader Microsoft ecosystem. Third, the governance layer. That's crypto agility, cryptographic inventory, phased modernization, vendor accountability, and enterprise readiness. That third piece is where my lens sits, because cognitive security isn't just about what machines can compute. It's also about how organizations think, decide, defer, trust, and act. when the technical ground starts shifting under their feet. Quantum risk is a perfect test case. The math is hard, the timeline is uncertain, the consequences are asymmetric. That combination creates cognitive fog. Some leaders will panic, some will posture, some will wait for perfect proof, some will quietly assume someone else owns it. That's where reciprocating consequences start stacking up, because the cost of inaction doesn't always show up when the decision is made. Sometimes it shows up years later, wearing a different uniform, carrying an old invoice, and asking why nobody mapped the trust layer when there was still time. So we're going to walk this carefully. No panic, no sci-fi confetti, no breathless breakthrough theater, just the signal. Start with the dramatic side, Microsoft's hardware gamble. Most quantum computing approaches are wrestling with the same problem. Qubits are fragile, painfully fragile. They don't like noise, they don't like heat, they don't like vibration, they don't like being looked at the wrong way. That fragility causes errors. Errors require correction. Correction requires overhead. Overhead becomes scale. And scale is the mountain everyone is trying to climb. Microsoft made a very different bet. For years, it has chased topological qubits based on something called Majorana zero modes. Now that phrase sounds like it escaped from a physics dissertation and landed in a cybersecurity briefing by accident. So let's make it plain. A typical qubit is like writing a message on tissue paper in a rainstorm. The information is real. The problem is keeping it intact. A topological qubit, in theory, is more like tying that information into the shape of a knot. A little disturbance may shake the string, but it shouldn't easily erase the knot. That's the appeal. If Microsoft can make topological qubits work at scale, the payoff could be extraordinary. Less fragility, less error correction overhead, a more practical path toward useful quantum machines. But that if is doing heavy lifting, and any honest story has to sit with that tension. Microsoft has made bold claims around its Majorana chips. Majorana 1 put the company's topological ambition back into the spotlight. Majorana 2 raised the volume even more. Microsoft has said Majorana 2 is dramatically more reliable than earlier versions, with much longer qubit lifetimes and a materials redesign intended to improve stability. That's remarkable if it holds, but this is where careful language matters. The broader physics community has not treated every Microsoft claim as settled science. There's been real skepticism, serious skepticism. Not internet snark, not casual doubt, actual scientific scrutiny around whether Microsoft has conclusively demonstrated the Majorana behavior needed to support its topological approach. That's important because quantum computing is full of shiny claims that arrive before the dust has settled. The headline says, breakthrough. The lab says, show your work. The market hears revolution. The physicists ask about error rates, reproducibility, peer review, scale, and whether the measurements really prove what the company says they prove. That skepticism isn't disrespect, it's discipline. Science is supposed to be difficult to fool, so the honest read is this: Microsoft may be onto something major. The topological path may become a remarkable engineering advantage. It may also remain a hard, contested climb with more unresolved questions than the marketing language suggests. Both things can be true at the same time. That's not a contradiction. That's emerging technology in the wild. And here's the strategic pivot. Microsoft's protection strategy doesn't depend on Microsoft winning the quantum hardware race. That's the part many people miss. Even if Microsoft's Majorana path takes longer than expected, even if another architecture wins first, even if the timeline slips, Microsoft still has to protect its software ecosystem from the quantum future. Windows still has to survive it. Azure still has to survive it. Microsoft 365 still has to survive it. Identity still has to survive it. Certificates still have to survive it. The trust layer still has to survive it. That's why the software side is the more immediate story. Now here's where the quantum conversation gets practical. A sufficiently powerful quantum computer running Shor's algorithm could threaten the public key cryptography that secures much of today's digital world. That includes RSA. That includes elliptic curve cryptography. That includes the math behind a lot of key exchange, digital signatures, authentication, identity, and secure communication. Plain language, some of the math that helps systems trust each other may age badly once quantum computers become strong enough. Not every kind of encryption falls the same way. Symmetric encryption and hashing cite in a different risk category, especially when key sizes are adjusted properly. The sharper pressure is on asymmetric cryptography. Public key systems, certificates, digital signatures, key establishment, the machinery that lets strangers on a network establish trust without already sharing a secret. That's the machinery quantum threatens. And the risk isn't evenly spread. A throwaway login token from last month probably won't matter 10 years from now. A weapons system engineering package might. A merger and acquisition archive might. A source code repository might. A legal archive might. A long-lived identity chain might. A sensitive research dataset might. That's why Harvest Now, Decrypt Later has teeth. It separates theft from use. The adversary doesn't have to read the data today. They just have to believe the data will still be valuable when the math finally gives way. That turns quantum into a data lifespan problem. The question isn't only, can quantum break this today? The better question is, how long does this data need to remain protected? That's the question leaders need to get comfortable asking. Because if your data has a 10-year shelf life and your migration takes 7 years once you finally understand the scope, then the risk window may already be open. That's uncomfortable. Good. Some discomfort is useful. It means the signal is getting through. Now let's talk about what Microsoft is actually doing. This is the part that matters to practitioners. Microsoft has been moving post-quantum cryptography into the platform layer. The two big names to track are ML-KEM and ML-DSA. ML-KEM supports key establishment. ML-DSA supports digital signatures. These are part of the post-quantum cryptography standards finalized by NIST. That matters because standards change the temperature. Before standards, everyone experiments. After standards, vendors implement. After vendors implement, procurement teams, auditors, customers, regulators, and security leaders start asking sharper questions. Microsoft has added support for these algorithms into foundational Windows cryptographic capabilities. That includes Windows Server 2025. That includes Windows 11. That includes Cryptography API, Next Generation, or CNG. That includes .NET pathways for developers. This is bigger than a checkbox. When security features become native to the platform, adoption gets easier. Nobody wants every development team building custom cryptography in the corner like a weekend science project. That's how brittle systems are born. Native support matters because it puts safer tools closer to where engineers already work. But availability doesn't equal adoption, and adoption doesn't equal coverage, and coverage doesn't equal assurance. That's the part that deserves a red circle. An organization can run software that supports post-quantum cryptography and still have a massive quantum readiness gap. Because the feature existing is only the opening move, you still need to know where cryptography lives. And in most enterprises, cryptography is everywhere. Some of it is documented, some of it is assumed, some of it is hard-coded, some of it belongs to vendors, some of it belongs to systems nobody wants to reboot, some of it is inside appliances, some of it is inside firmware, some of it is inside backup tools, VPNs, authentication flows, certificate chains, signing pipelines, service meshes, APIs, and internal tools built by teams that no longer exist. That's why cryptographic inventory is so important. It sounds boring, it isn't. It's archaeology. Enterprise cryptography is sedimentary. Layer after layer, year after year, a certificate authority gets configured. An app team picks a library. A vendor ships an appliance. A backup system encrypts archives. A DevOps pipeline signs code. A cloud service handles keys. A legacy tool keeps running because nobody wants to disturb it. Then one day, a leader asks, where do we use vulnerable public key cryptography? And the room gets quiet. That quiet is the risk. Certificates deserve their own spotlight because certificates are where trust gets formal. They're not glamorous, they don't get much applause, but they run deep. Certificates help machines trust machines. They help browsers trust websites. They help users trust services. They help systems verify code. They help enterprises decide what belongs and what doesn't. Microsoft has added post-quantum support into Active Directory certificate services in Windows Server 2025 with ML-DSA, support for certificate authority hierarchies, code signing, TLS certificate templates, and OCSP response signing. That's a big deal. A DCS sits inside a lot of enterprise trust infrastructure. It's one of those systems people don't always talk about until it breaks, expires, misissues, or gets compromised. But here's the nuance. MLDSA is a signature algorithm. It signs, it verifies, it does not encrypt. So you can't just sprinkle MLDSA across the environment and declare the whole enterprise quantum safe. That's not how this works. Some certificate templates won't fit. Some use cases need encryption or key exchange. Some applications may not understand larger post-quantum keys or signatures. Some protocols may behave strangely. Some chains may break. Some old systems may simply refuse to play along. This is where crypto agility becomes more than a nice phrase on a strategy slide. Crypto agility means you can change algorithms without tearing apart the system. It means cryptography is configurable. It means keys are managed cleanly. It means certificates can be replaced without institutional panic. It means applications aren't welded to RSA like rebar inside concrete. It means the enterprise can pivot when the math changes. And that's a leadership issue, because crypto agility isn't born in the middle of a crisis. It's built through architecture, documentation, standards, governance, and practice. For the defense industrial base, that's especially important. Many DIB environments aren't clean, modern, cloud-native playgrounds. They include legacy systems, accredited enclaves, specialized engineering environments, supplier dependencies, long system life cycles, controlled data flows, vendor-managed black boxes, and processes where just upgraded is a slogan, not a plan. So the practical move is simple. Start mapping, start testing, start asking vendors uncomfortable questions, start identifying long-lived data, start finding where the old math is hiding. Because the most dangerous cryptography in your environment may be the cryptography nobody remembers owning. Now let's talk timeline, because the clock just moved. For a while, Microsoft's public framing pointed to early adoption around 2029 and full transition around 2033. That already sounded aggressive. Then Microsoft accelerated the plan. As of June 30th, 2026, Microsoft said it is moving its quantum safe program target forward with a goal to transition Microsoft products and services to post-quantum cryptography by 2029. That's not a small signal. Microsoft is deeply inextricable from enterprise computing. Windows, Azure, Microsoft 365, Entra, developer platforms, certificate services, identity, cloud workloads, government environments, regulated industries. So when Microsoft moves a cryptographic transition forward, pay attention. It doesn't mean the whole world is instantly ready. It does mean a major technology anchor believes the transition window has tightened. Microsoft's accelerated plan centers on three big work streams. First, upgrade network cryptography. That means modernizing the protocols that protect data moving across networks. Second, build crypto agility for stored data. That means configurable cryptography, better key management, key rotation, and fewer hard-coded assumptions. Third, modernize cryptographic trust chains. That means certificates, signatures, code integrity, software updates, identity systems, and supply chain trust. Listen to that list again. Network cryptography, stored data, trust chains. That's the full arc. Data in motion, data at rest. Systems deciding what to believe. And that third piece is where this becomes bigger than encryption. A certificate tells a system, trust this service. A signature tells a system, trust this software. An identity token tells a system, trust this user. A key vault tells a system, protect this secret. When the trust chain gets weak, organizational judgment gets weak. The machine may still function, the dashboard may still be green, the workflow may still complete, but the basis for trust may be eroding underneath it. That's cognitive security territory, because cognitive security is about preserving decision integrity in systems where humans, machines, models, and trust signals are inextricably connected. Quantum readiness sits right there. It's not only about better algorithms, it's about whether the enterprise can still know what to trust. Now let's bring this through the DIB lens. The defense industrial base has a special relationship with time. A lot of the data stays valuable for years, sometimes decades. Engineering data, system designs, supplier structures, interface documentation, test results, manufacturing details, sustainment information, vulnerability data, program context. Even when the original project phase ends, the information can still matter. That's why Harvest Now, Decrypt Later lands differently in this space. The adversary can be patient because the data ages slowly. The migration can be hard because the systems are complex. The ownership can be blurry because responsibility spreads across programs, vendors, contracts, enclaves, cloud services, enterprise IT, security teams, and engineering groups. That's how exposure hides in plain sight. No single person feels the whole risk. Everybody owns a slice, nobody owns the consequence. That's accountability diffusion. And it's one of the oldest problems in cybersecurity, wearing new quantum clothing. So the DIB question isn't, should we be afraid of quantum? That's too shallow. The better question is, which data, systems, certificates, vendors, and trust chains would create unacceptable exposure if today's cryptography aged out before we migrated? That question has weight, and it leads to better work. What data must stay confidential for 10, 15, 20, or 30 years? Where does that data live? Where does it move? Who touches it? What protects it? Which systems rely on RSA? Which systems rely on elliptic curve cryptography? Where are certificates issued? How long do they live? Which certificate authorities matter most? Which software signing pipelines protect code integrity? Which vendors have real post-quantum roadmaps? Which products are quietly frozen on old cryptography? Which contracts need updated language? Which environments need lab testing before production changes? And most importantly, who has decision authority? Because this isn't only a technical migration, it's a decision rights problem. If everyone agrees quantum readiness matters, but nobody can fund it, prioritize it, test it, sequence it, or accept the residual risk, then the organization hasn't built readiness. It has built a talking point. And talking points don't protect trust chains. Now, let's take a pause in the story and talk about how Cyber Explorer is helping name organizations can feel quantum and AI risk accelerating, but they don't have a practical language, framework, or decision instrument for understanding where human judgment, machine authority, cognitive data, and accountability are starting to blur. Leaders are being asked to adopt agentic AI faster than they can understand its reciprocating consequences. Cyber Explorer helps leaders see where AI is no longer just supporting decisions, but quietly shaping the conditions under which decisions are made. Now let's jump back into the story. Let's talk about the trap in this story. The trap is waiting for certainty. You'll hear people say quantum computers aren't ready. That's true. You'll hear people say Microsoft's Majorana claims are still contested. Also true. You'll hear people say nobody knows when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer will arrive. Correct. But those facts don't cancel the migration burden. They create it. Uncertainty is the reason to build agility. Uncertainty is the reason to inventory. Uncertainty is the reason to test. Uncertainty is the reason to ask vendors for roadmaps now. Uncertainty is the reason to prioritize long-lived sensitive data first. Waiting for a perfectly confirmed quantum arrival date is like waiting to buy flood insurance after the water is already touching the porch. By then, the timeline owns you. And in cybersecurity, when the timeline owns you, every decision gets more expensive. That's the reciprocating consequence. Delay creates compression. Compression creates shortcuts. Shortcuts create brittle controls. Brittle controls create operational debt. Operational debt eventually sends the invoice. So the practical middle path is the only serious path. Don't panic, don't posture, don't dismiss, inventory, prioritize, modernize, test, build crypto agility, pressure test vendors, protect long-lived data first, update procurement language, map the trust chain, move before the emergency makes the decision for you. That's the real operator move. Now connect the two halves of Microsoft's story. Microsoft is trying to build a quantum computer. Microsoft is also trying to protect its ecosystem from quantum computers. At first glance, that sounds strange. A company building the storm and selling stronger roofs. But that's too simple. The sharper read is this. Microsoft is hedging across the next computing transition. If its Majorana approach works, Microsoft sits closer to the center of the next major platform shift. If another company gets there first, Microsoft still needs Windows, Azure, Microsoft 365, Entra, developer frameworks, certificate services, and cloud trust to survive that future. Either way, the protection work has to happen. That's the strategic clarity. The hardware race is uncertain, the protection race is active. And for cybersecurity leaders, the second race is the one touching your environment first. You don't need a quantum computer in your building to have quantum-related risk. You need long-lived data. You need vulnerable public key cryptography. You need unclear ownership. You need legacy systems. You need vendor opacity. You need an inventory gap. That's enough. That's the exposure stack. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So where does this leave us? Quantum computers are not breaking every encryption system tomorrow. Microsoft's hardware claims still deserve scrutiny. The physics is hard, the engineering is harder, the timeline may move again, but the signal is real. Microsoft pulled its quantum-safe transition target forward to 2029. NIST has finalized the first major post-quantum cryptography standards. Windows and Windows Server now have platform support for post-quantum algorithms. .NET developers have a native path. Active Directory Certificate Services has ML-DSA support for important PKI use cases. Government guidance is pushing inventories, roadmaps, vendor engagement, and migration planning. That's enough signal to act, not panic. Act. Here's the Cyber Explorer takeaway. Organizations that treat post-quantum cryptography as a future patch will be late. Organizations that treat it as a trust chain migration will be better prepared. Organizations that treat it as a decision authority issue will ask the right questions before the deadline starts asking them back. Because the real risk isn't only that a future quantum computer breaks old encryption. The deeper risk is that today's leaders fail to build the governance muscle required to protect tomorrow's trust. That's the quiet part. That's the part worth putting light on. Quantum readiness isn't one team's side project. It touches identity. It touches PKI. It touches cloud. It touches software signing. It touches backups. It touches data governance. It touches vendors. It touches procurement. It touches leadership accountability. It touches every place your organization says, "We trust this." And when trust is in motion, leadership has to move with it. So share this with a colleague who owns identity, PKI, cloud security, governance, engineering data, software assurance, or long-lived sensitive information. Because the quantum clock didn't just tick, it moved, and the organizations that hear it early can put themselves in the path of opportunity before they find themselves in the path of consequence. I'm Alan's virtual avatar signing off. Until the next one, stay safe, stay secure, and always stay informed.